Friends, it's Everything Mayor. Welcome back to the show. We got a big one this week, that's for sure. Talking about an injury to John Mayer. John, thanks for giving us stuff to talk about here without having new music out, but certainly didn't want this to be the type of thing we're talking about. We'll dig into that, though. I've got my guitar here. Or a guitar. It's not my guitar. I'm borrowing it. To sort of dig into what it means to be injured the way that John Mayer is injured. Also going to talk about a new track that he is listed as producer on, and I found a way to listen to some interesting shows of John Mayer's, as well as others. But it's a free app, and one of my friends, Gabe, turned me on to that app. We'll talk about it later, so you can dig into some old Mayer archive shows. Before we dig in, though, to all of that, please do subscribe. Check out the membership section. But we do have merch, and you may have noticed, conveniently placed over here is this new Everything Mayer coffee cup, where I'm drinking some water out of it today. Works for anything that you would like to put in it, whether it's hot, cold, or a bunch of pens or pencils. Get yours today and support the channel. So there's my plug for myself. But let's dig into this. I think if you've been paying attention on Instagram, certainly you know that John Mayer has injured his left index finger, which is a very important finger if you are a guitar player. And to kick it off, let's just we'll read John's own words from a post last Thursday, which was a week after apparently he injured himself on a little break from the Ted & Company shows. But here's what he said. Last Thursday, I injured my left index finger, truck door in parentheses, and the first thing that went through my mind was, I really need that finger in a week. I need all my fingers, but the left index finger is the team captain of my fretting hand. It will heal just fine, but will be out of commission for a while. In the meantime, I've spent every day practicing guitar using the other three fingers, and I think I have it sounding pretty good. I've always felt like every part of me belongs to these shows, and it's my responsibility to return to the stage each night without screwing up the equipment. And I'm sorry for the misadventure here. The power of the music and the love for these shows will prevail. See you tonight. So, of course, upon him posting that, my first thought was, oh my God, that's awful. I can't believe that happened. But then, the fact that he's not canceling the shows and he is powering through, I immediately became curious. Okay, how are you going to do this, John? Because as he said, the left index finger is absolutely the team captain. One of the most important fingers. Certainly, they're all important, but we'll talk a little bit here in a second about just guitar. If you're a guitar player, you already kind of know where I'm going with this. But they're all important, but the index finger is one that's kind of really, oh man, that's a tough one to skip over. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to attempt to show you why. I've got this PRS NF3 plugged into a brand new Quilter Direct amp, so that's what you're hearing. It's a little amp sim pedal, but if you're interested, I'll link it below. But here's the thing, like I said, as guitar players, we're lazy in a lot of ways. We get made fun of, and it's true that most of us don't read music very well, myself included. But when you start to dig in, you kind of look at your playing, and so much of your playing is obviously your thumb. If you're a Mayer fan, you see him wrapping his thumb around the fretboard quite a bit, but then you've got the other three fingers that are doing most of the heavy lifting. The pinky gets neglected largely for a lot of us, and it's something that we should all really work out and help out, because when you start to play things like, if you watch, like someone who's not guilty of this, Dave Matthews takes full advantage of all four fingers on his left hand, and a lot of times, he's where he's using his pinky to fret chords, and a lot of times, you could do this, you could do this. You could do a whole lot of different things with more dexterous and stronger fingers. The pinky tends to take a little longer to develop. So, let's actually, before we dig into the playing portion, let's listen to John and watch, if you happen to be on YouTube here, to John play a little bit with the remaining three fingers, and just see what you can notice. See if you notice anything. I'm curious to see if you notice anything. I noticed some things. We'll talk about them. great. Of course, just awesome tone, and still really tasteful, wonderful playing. And but I'll note. So here are the few things I noticed right away. I don't think that. Well, I can tell you with almost absolute certainty that he wouldn't have been able to do a John Mayer solo acoustic tour show in this shape, because being the only instrument on stage for those shows, it's just not having that first finger just would have been impossible. Secondly, I thought about like the full band shows. I think he still could have done it on that because his voice is fine, and he's got two other, at least in the most recent form of the band, in Isaiah Sharkey and David Ryan Harris. He's got two unbelievable guitar players that, and then a whole band backing him up too. That could, I think, cover it. You wouldn't get a blistering, the same like performance as you might be used to from a John Mayer full band solo show, but I think you could do it. Now, Dead and Company, though, I think is the best case scenario for this, because so much of what he does in this band are these single note. I already cheated and used my index finger, but so there's those single note things that it definitely lends itself more to having fewer fingers and not being able to access your index finger. So thankfully, these are the shows that he's having to play with this injury. But what I also noticed is a few things. One, he's playing the Brent Mason Telecaster, which is super cool. It has what's called a B bender in it. So if you look closely in that video, the strap is not attached to the strap button here. It's actually attached back here, because on the back of the guitar and inside of the guitar, there's a whole lever pulley spring mechanism to where when you pull down on the strap, it does this like kind of bendy thing for you without actually bending the string with your hand. Hence B bender, it bends the B string. There's a G bender, common in country music, and it can kind of get you close to a pedal steel sort of sound. But I think, as John Mayer Gear mentioned about that guitar, it's probably to give him some more options being down that finger. Thanks to Mimi on Instagram, I'll link your account as well for the video here that we checked out. But the other thing I noticed, aside from the guitar and what it's equipped with, is that so often us guitar players, I mean, there's a lot of things you can rip on guitar players for. One, we don't read music usually, and that's true in so many cases. My reading skills have fallen off over the years for sure. But the other thing that, if you really get inside, is that, as far as fingers, a lot of times these three fingers, index, middle, ring, and your thumb, are what you're spending the most time playing with. And, Mayer wraps his thumb around, and he certainly uses the first, second, and third, or index, middle, and ring fingers the most. And everybody who plays guitar, I think, just naturally does that. And it's cool, it's fine, as long as you have all of them. But when you delete that index finger, now you're left with, two fingers that, if you're not used to this, the spreading across frets with your middle and ring finger, it's... I mean, that is not easy. But what I noticed is he's not really using his pinky very much. He's really relying on the middle finger and the ring finger. So as difficult as it is, those two fingers are probably the strongest. They're the easiest to work with. And even Mayer is avoiding that pinky. He does use it. And I think that part of his practice routine was to probably work that into the mix more. But I'm telling you, like, first, second, and third, 1, 2, 3 is a lot different than I'm about to give you the finger. Sorry. This one, and this one. It's there's a big difference there. And so Mayer has an advantage too, though. He has gigantic hands. His shortest finger is probably the equivalent of like my longest finger. So he does have that going for him as well. Just gigantic hands, but he's absolutely up to the task. Huge props to him for, and also, let's talk about this. I don't know if he broke the tip of his finger, cut it, or both, but it's painful. So, he's dealing with pain. When I delete a finger here and I just pretend, which I've been trying to do, and I'm just... I mean, it's, I don't have a finger injury, but I can tell you all the muscles in my forearm, it feels weird. It feels weird to do this. If you're a guitar player, go try it. Try not to use that first finger. And honestly, like the worst part about it for me right now is the finger I'm not using is like stretched out in a very unnatural way. Props to you, John. Props to you, because you're really powering through here. And the playing, talk about a great guitar player. Like, no, he's not able to do what he would normally be able to do, but just the sense for what he can do and how to bring that to the music and still make it speak and make it what it should be is really, it's very impressive. It's very impressive, and I think it shows a lot of willpower. So really cool. But again, the band to have this happen with is Dead & Company, because, there's so many, think about all of Mayer's tunes, and there's some very specific things to play, like, the typical like slow dancing. That's probably the wrong pickup. That's the wrong guitar for this too, but it's all, I played it wrong, but it's all your first finger. I mean, if you try to do that without your first finger, oh man. I mean, without your first finger, obviously, he could do it. I'm sure he could do it. But, there are so many specific guitar parts in a Mayer concert that I think it'd be very difficult. The Dead & Company thing allows for a little bit more freedom, a little more floating on top of the music. Certainly, he's got Bob Weir playing guitar as well, and a full band to back him up. So interesting to see if there's any like progress or development for the final run of shows at the Sphere coming up. But it sounds like he'll probably be in an injured status for those as well. I highly doubt you're going to see him out there just rocking that finger. But who knows? I mean, the body heals the way it heals. Maybe he'll be back in full form, or at least a little bit of use of that index finger. We'll see. Now, the other interesting thing that I noticed, just a side note here. I'm gonna mute this, and this is gonna be, you got to be watching this one. So if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I'll try to describe what I'm seeing here. But so you see Mayer talking, right? On the Sphere shows, he's back on in-ear monitors, which means that he only hears what's being fed into these things in his ears. And that while playing and singing is amazing, if you have a good mix and a nice setup with in-ear monitors, what it limits you from doing is speaking to one another on stage. And there's a lot of communication, both musically and also verbally, in bands like this. And what I noticed is, if you can see this video here, right on the top of his collar of his shirt there, he's got a little newscaster lapel microphone. And I think what they're doing is they're taking a page out of the Dave Matthews Band playbook, which Dave Matthews Band has been doing this for 25 years with in-ear monitors, but they have a band intercom system, and it allows, you're not going to hear it in the PA or on any recordings, but back into their ears, it introduces the ability for band members to talk to one another again. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You can do talk back microphones, where you see a mic at the back of the stage, sometimes pick it up and talk into it. But for in the moment playing and communicating, especially with jam bands, you can see him talking to Jeff Chimenti over here on keys, and he's talking. He's not just mouthing things. They can hear each other. We can't hear it, but they can hear it. So I thought that was kind of cool, because I went through some other pictures of his outfits at the Sphere, and each one of them I've noticed that he's got that lapel microphone. So they're all talking to one another. At least John is. Maybe not all the band members, but at least he has the ability to communicate to people on stage, which is super cool. It's another wireless pack that he has to wear, but hey, if it aids in the performance, why not? So that's it. I mean, if you're a guitar player, let me know what you think. I mean, this is, like I said, it is no joke to be. You even take something like Gravity, where it's like it's super well. It's difficult to play the way he does and nail the feeling and vibe, but it's a relatively simple figure, but it really requires that first finger even to make that bend. So if I get rid of that finger, it's just the amount of tension it takes to push with 3 fingers versus 2 is just a lot different. And then, let's say you wanted to do like this barred C minor chord. I mean, you can't really do that with, well, I guess you could like this. I'm telling you, it's just wild. I mean, he's able to solo in a much different way. Thankfully, it's with Dead & Company because, man, playing some of those Mayer tunes without that first finger would be almost impossible, I think. So let's move on. Let's move on for a second here. I'm going to grab a drink from my mug. Available in the merch store. How's that again for a plug? But let's talk about, we've talked heavily about why Mayer is not putting out new music. He's spoken about it himself. And I think we got another example of why it's not happening here. This is from Aaron Sterling's Instagram. But it's regarding a production credit by John Mayer. And Sterloid writes, such a beautiful song I got to work on from Annika. How do we say this? Annika Bennett? Annika. An artist I'm not familiar with, and I've listened to the song once, but I'm going to listen to it a few more times. But it's got, Mayer production and Aaron Sterling on the drums, which is super cool. So I think you're going to see, hey, I mean, this is another thing. I mean, he's brand ambassador for a watch company. He's in Dead & Company. He's, what else? I mean, he's not doing Current Mood, but maybe we'll see him doing that. I don't know. I mean, then he's producing music. He's guest spotting on other people's songs. I mean, he's doing a lot. And it's funny because he's probably just as busy, if not busier, today without any new music coming out than he would be during a traditional album and tour cycle. So, again, every time one of these things comes up, I think one part of us is excited. Hey, cool. John Mayer's a producer on this record. If a tree falls in the forest. But then the other part of us is saying, man, could you maybe go finish In the Neighborhood or Why Anyone Has to Go or just some other songs and put out a record, So we're torn, or at least I am. So exciting nonetheless, but also torn. And I'm just, I'm curious. I mean, are we going to see more of this? We just ask every week, what's the timeline going to look like? What is it going to look like? And I don't think he really has one, to be honest, yet. But as long as there's work like this being done, which presumably this work was done a while ago for producing on this song, it's going to be just more time that we are not getting a record. But like I said, we're not seeing it in real time. He didn't tell us he was going and producing the song. So we're not really going to know. There's not going to be like a drop off of stuff that he's doing publicly for us to be like, ooh, the lull is here. He must be working on a record now. It's going to happen just concurrently with all this stuff. And we're not going to know until we know. And we'll be excited nonetheless when we get there. But hey, you want to see John Mayer as a producer? Boom, you got it. Go check it out. I did mention at the beginning of the show the ability to listen to some archived John Mayer shows. And Gabe Bergman, if you know Gabriel Bergman, great guitar teacher, great player. Go check out his Instagram and YouTube channel. But he often posts screenshots of him listening back to old Dead shows, Grateful Dead, Dead & Company, and occasionally John Mayer shows. And I was like, hey, what is that? And it's actually an app called Relisten. And it's free. And from what I can tell, it's kind of an aggregator of just archived fan recordings across the internet from, archive.org or wherever they might be hosted. And it's a really clever way to it's a very easy to use music player. You can search for multiple bands. The other cool thing, and I think this is where the name Relisten comes from, is that it will show you shows on that day when you open the app. So today, as a recording, this is August 5th. And, it'll show you, hey, where was John Mayer on August 5th? If there is a recording of a show from that day. So it's not like setlist.fm where it's like, hey, I want to see what happened on this day, just throughout his entire career. It's only going to tell you if there's a show that's available on today. And like, so for example, Let's see here. I'll pull up Mayor on Relisten. 2 shows available from August 5th. One is August 5th, 2010 in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the other is August 5th, 2019, St. Paul, Minnesota. So there you go. Kind of cool to walk down memory lane and say, hey, like, you know, what was going on today in the history of John Mayer touring land. Again, not every show exists on there. It just had to be, someone had to have recorded it and uploaded it somewhere on the internet. I've checked to see if my first Mayer show from 2002 was on there. It's not, unfortunately. But my second one was. So that was kind of cool. I got to relive that show. There's some fun things that I didn't remember from the show. So go check that out. Relisten is the app. I mean, Dave Matthews Band, Dead and Company, Grateful Dead, Fish, a lot of artists who are, you know, have a taper community, taper being people who tape the shows, are on there. So super cool, a lot of fun if you're looking for a way to revisit some shows maybe you've been to, or maybe shows you wish you had been to. And certainly great to compare performances or evolution of songs over time, which is a ton of fun. So with that, we have reached, if I could reach the applause button, the After Dinner Mint. Welcome to this portion of the show, which is decidedly more relaxed than the rest of the show. It'll probably be a shorter After Dinner Mint today, but yeah, hey, I mean, thanks for listening this far. If you have, this is normally where I take a drink. Today I've had one other drink in the middle of this because I do have these mugs, which I try to take a look at the merch before it's available to you guys to make sure it's not crappy. But excuse me. But you know, this mug is really nice as far as mugs go. And the shirt, t-shirt and sweatshirt, I only have the t-shirt, but reports indicate that the sweatshirt is quite nice as well. So check those out if you want to support the show. I really appreciate it. What else? How do you guys feel about the Mayer finger injury? I think it immediately made me like realize how fragile. You know, I mean, listen, I will never compare myself and what I've done or accomplished as a musician to John Mayer. Obviously, not even close. But there have been times where I am acutely aware, one-off, you know, times where I have a show and it all falls on me, or there's been 300 tickets sold, you know, or whatever, and it's like, start to realize how much pressure there is on you to be healthy, to be prepared, not only to be prepared, but to be healthy. Don't be sick, you know, don't hurt yourself. You know, some things you can control, some things you can't control. You know, getting sick is one of them. So as primarily a vocalist, that's always tough because it's really, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, you can obviously, you know, take precautions to and not get sick, but sometimes it just doesn't matter what you do, you get sick, and it can be really poorly timed. But as far as injury goes, I've become more conscious of this because I've had injuries, you know, to my hands and wrists and just doing random things around the house, and it's like, you know, so often now I have to use my hands in so many ways, and we all do. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a musician or not. Like, I mean, you know, injuries just in general are so, they can be scary when you start to think about it. So, and Mayer's a real person, you know, I mean, he's got to live his life. He's not out, you know, building decks for fun or something, or, you know, have a woodworking hobby that would jeopardize his fingers around a saw or something. But, I mean, you got to live your life and things happen, you know, but when you're somebody like him, who's, as we know here, I just think one of the generational talent on guitar, you know, his hands are certainly an asset and important. And not that any of our hands aren't important also, but when you've got 20,000 people waiting for you to play, I mean, they are kind of important. And I'm going to be honest, like, I mean, listen, I've said it a few times, I'm not going to the Sphere shows, but when I heard that he's not up to his full capacity, I was kind of like, do I need to see him play with 3 fingers? I mean, and that's terrible. I really shouldn't even admit that, but you know, I thought about it. I was like, well, that's not gonna be the same. But then again, it's also kind of unique. You know, it's kind of like the shows during the pandemic or the following the pandemic, where they had to like day of reconfigure the band, and no, you didn't get the full performance that you were expecting, but you got something that no one else is going to ever get to see. So it's kind of cool that you'd get to see Mayer figuring it out with Three Fingers. So, so again, it's two sides of the coin, but just made me think like, oh man, that could be rough pretty quickly if you get hurt and you really need to use your fingers and hands. So again, this show is interesting. I really, the one part of me wishes that he would put out some new music, because I don't want to get to a point where I'm stretching to figure out what to talk about an artist who's not, releasing new music. And there's tons of stuff we can talk about, and there's tons of stuff we will talk about, but there's enough happening though to where it's like there's actually is news and things that are current to talk about. We don't have to go totally archival yet on this. But I certainly don't want it to be things like this. So stop hurting yourself, John Mayer. But yeah, I mean, it does make me think about the show too. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to do this when we're going to take a break maybe to gear up for new music? I don't know. We'll see. Tell me what you think though. I mean, are you good with talking about whatever's happening in John Mayer land, even if there's not much, or going down the archive road? You tell me. I don't know. But I always appreciate you listening. I appreciate all the support. Members, thank you to the new members. More member-only content on the way. Merch is out. I just continue to be blown away by your support of this show, and really, really appreciate it. Please enjoy it, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your audio podcasts. And stay tuned. Got more stuff coming. I really appreciate it. Talk to you in the next one. See ya.